I'm joined today by a director whose projects have ranged from commercials to live action narratives and even animation. His credits include a Project Greenlight competition winner called Wither, the Zack Snyder produced Watchmen, Tales of the Black Freighter, and most recently, his feature directorial debut, Marshmallow, which hit theaters earlier this year and is currently available on streaming platforms. That director is Daniel DelPurgatorio. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here and talk shop.
Yeah, it's really great to be talking with you again. Daniel and I first met way back in 2017 at Shutter Labs, so it's really great to be reuniting the Shutter Labs fellows and chatting about your new movie.
Yeah, so cool. It's crazy when you say the year because it makes you realize how fast stuff really goes. I can't believe it's been 8 years. Crazy.
I know. It's funny.
Yeah.
Right before this, I had to look it up. I was Googling, was it really 2017 that we last were together in person? That's wild.
It doesn't feel like it. It's so weird. It's like you have this stuff that you feel like it was like only yesterday, and then you like think about it and it does feel forever ago, but it's that weird balance of connecting these different time frames.
Exactly. And a pandemic in between all of that probably really shifted our perspectives as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, pandemic and all of these strikes and crazy handful of years for sure.
Yes. So let's go back even further then. And the way we usually start is by asking what initially gave you the bug, got you interested in film and genre and art? Was there a person, an experience, a movie, or any piece of pop culture that kind of got you hooked?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I guess it all sort of hit at the same time. Like I had an uncle that loved comic books and was an artist, and that was really exciting for me. And also he loved music, listening to like Kiss and Motley Crue and Poison back in the day when I was 6 years old, got me really into that stuff. And then my family loved movies. And so I remember, watching like Close Encounters and Jaws and Alien when I was really young. So I kind of got this bug, when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, I want to be an illustrator. I want to draw. I want to do stuff with movies or whatever. And then I think I was about 8 or 9. And I remember my parents left and I took one of my dad's like VHS tapes, and it had Mad Max, it had Friday the 13th Part 2, and it had Texas Chainsaw Massacre on it. I remember putting it on and watching all three of those, and my whole world just kind of my whole world changed. It was very different than, the Close Encounters and Jaws films that I was watching. And it was terrifying, of course, but it felt more accessible, which was really cool and kind of opened the doors for me of seeing a different level of filmmaking as opposed to the bigger blockbuster films that, I was used to. And I just loved it, and it got me really excited. And yeah, from that point on, I was just really into listening to music. I was really into watching movies. I was into drawing and painting a lot. And I knew that I wanted to go to art school at a young age. And I just worked really hard to be able to get the opportunity to do that as I was growing up.
Did you end up going into like a multidisciplinary art school, or did you gravitate towards something that catered to film?
Yeah, so I loved illustration, and I got into, I applied to a bunch of different art schools, and I was going to go to Pratt in New York, majoring in fine arts and minoring in illustration. And at the last minute, I made a shift because I really wanted to major in illustration more than anything. And I ended up going to Ringling in Sarasota, and they had a really fantastic illustration department there. And also they had a really great computer animation department, though that wasn't something that I was going to do. And so I ended up last minute switching, going to Ringling and majoring in illustration. And it was great. I really, really loved it. And it's funny, like at that time, like going there and doing that kind of stuff, like as an illustrator, you're looking of like, cool, I want to go work at Hallmark and make greeting cards, or I want to go work at this newspaper to do like spot illustrations or like poster design. Like that was sort of the goals of a lot of the illustrators, and myself included. And at the same time, I really did still love, movies, and all of my friends and roommates and everybody, like we were all playing in bands together, and we were all making shitty movies ourselves. And I was doing this illustration thing. And in my last year of school, I decided to apply to grad school. So I did. And then also I got a job opportunity at an animation studio. And I sort of made the decision of, well, I could pay to learn how to do film stuff, or I could get paid to learn to do film stuff. And I decided to take the job. And yeah, so I went there and I got hired as like a concept artist and like a storyboard artist for commercial and for like animated films. And very much like all of us, that you probably talk to, and yourself included, you just sort of lie about what you can do. And then you have to very feverishly teach yourself how to do that stuff. And so I just started lying that I knew how to animate and I could do motion graphics and I could do all this stuff. And then I'd go home at night and I'd teach myself things and I'd meet with friends and we'd work together, and just kept getting more and more opportunities to start doing things outside of just drawing. And then that, led me into the opportunity to start getting into more film stuff.
The fake it till you make it adage proves to be quite an effective strategy in this industry.
It is. And honestly, it's, and I'm still doing that, I'm sure, just like you and many other people. And honestly, it's trial by fire, right? And I think that you can sit around and wait to learn or wait to get an opportunity, or you could be proactive and jump into it and then have to figure it out. And I think honestly, that's kind of the best way to do it, because you're in it and you have a deadline and you have clients or you have producers or whatever, and you can't fail. And so I think you tend to work a little bit harder and you try to rise, above what you think you can do. And that's exciting too. That's part of the excitement of the job,
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is every project's different. So I think no matter how experienced you are, you're going to go into it with a lot of unknowns and learnings that you're going to need to develop. So a lot of people will say, I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm still learning on the job. Even if you're doing something you've done 100 times, right? That's kind of the nature of art in general, as well as I think the realities of film production, especially on set, due to kind of the chaos that can happen and all the different scenarios. So I think having that attitude, right, of, well, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to learn, or I'm going to teach myself, or I'm going to watch others and pick it up is great. It's about being kind of fearless and not letting that insecurity kind of hold you back.
Yeah, totally. And I think the best part of like any project that you work on, no matter what it is, and no matter what area, whether it's illustration or painting or film or whatever, if you're not learning something new every day or in every project, then you kind of hit like a lull. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the goal is not only making something great and working with great people, but coming out of it with a new thing that helps you develop and grow, not only as an artist, but as a person. And I think that that's really, really important, in what we do.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not learning, you're not taking risks.
100%. Yeah. There's no fun in just doing the same thing over and over again,
Absolutely. So how did you pivot from illustration, animation into live action?
Yeah, so I started my career doing a lot of commercial stuff, and that was great because I was meeting lots of cool people. I was learning lots of new software. I was getting opportunities to, like we said, grow and do different things. And the first entertainment project that I got to like truly work on was the Black Freighter project that I got to direct. And that was like old school, traditional, hand-drawn animation, people drawing on paper. So that was like really exciting for a couple of reasons. The first thing was I grew up, and I mentioned this earlier, my uncle who loved art when I was little, loved comic books, and I was introduced to WATCHMEN when I was younger. And I loved that. And so I got this opportunity to direct a part of the WATCHMEN, which was so cool. I wanted to make movies at that point in my life. And so this was a really great like a great mixture of illustration and animation and directing. And so I did that. And then after that, I had an opportunity to start a company. So I moved to Chicago with my wife, and I was able to hire a bunch of my friends, and we started doing, we had our own company. We were doing commercial production, and we sort of on the side said, hey, let's start making movies again like we used to do, just to kind of get out of the daily routine of, selling products. And so we started coming up with ideas, and we were really writing stuff that gave us the opportunity to do things that we wanted to try. Like, let's make a movie that's about this because we could build this, or we could make this, or we could try doing this. And it was more just for fun, just to, like I said, break the routine. And our first short we made it. We had a really great time. I met a lot of new people who were amazing that I still work with. And we had gotten to South by Southwest to premiere it, which was so exciting. And that opened the door because I went there and I met a ton of other nerds like myself and my friends that were doing the same thing and that had the same stories. And that was it, I think, that like going to that festival and meeting people during showcasing our film was really, really exciting. And that's the part that I loved the most. And that's, I think, what really pushed me to want to do this like as much as I could.
Yeah, that's incredible. And South by is challenging to get into. So congrats for that achievement. And then I think a lot of people have a similar experience where getting into, especially a major festival like that, sort of opens these doors and makes you realize it's possible, and getting to connect with other filmmakers who you respect, and is also just a really amazing opportunity to start to see yourself maybe as a peer, which really changes your perspective.
That's exactly it. It changes your perspective. And like, having been a fan of film stuff and having gone to festivals on some level through my, youth and growing up, changed dramatically from when I made a movie and I was there because I saw the other side of it, right? And it was really exciting. And like, yeah, it was really cool to show my movie, but it was way cooler to meet people and see the work that they were doing because it was inspiring. And then all of a sudden you're making, like, all of my friends that I have now, like more than half of them are people that I met along the way from meeting at festivals, all different types of festivals all over the place. And it's cool because it's giving me the opportunity to collaborate with people. And like how we met the same way. Like, we got to do this amazing the Shutter event, and it was so cool. And I met a ton of great people there, and we all still talk, and we all still connect, and we all still work together in some capacity. And that's just the greatest thing. It's the reward in any project,
Yeah, getting to build out your film family, as I like to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I do want to go back to the WATCHMEN project a little bit. Was that intimidating, kind of working with an IP that you yourself were a huge fan of when you were younger, but then also the comic fandom around it? I imagine that was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's one of those things when we landed the project, you celebrate, and then you have that moment of that oh shit moment, right? Where you realize that there's a major weight on your shoulders. When that happened, the internet was a thing. It's not like it is now, but it was like things were more accessible and voices were more visible. So I remember we got it and it's like, well, we're going in and we're going to have to do what we think is cool and something that we're proud of. And you just kind of ride it and hope that it works for the best. But when Zach was making the WATCHMEN film at the time, like, he literally had that novel in his pocket and he carried around everything he did. He was like, it was a Bible to him. And he was like really invested in that portion of it. And we felt the same way for what we were doing. And we had the opportunity to work with like Dave Gibbons, who did the original art, which was amazing. We were, through a bunch of different ideas and approaches and looks and styles. And we were able to have, both Zach and his guidance to give us what they thought would be the right way to go. And for me, that was all that I needed. And at that point, I think that weight sort of came off my shoulders. It was like, cool, we got more than anything, Dave, who did the original, we got his blessing and he helped steer the ship for us. And then you just ride with it. And yeah, it was amazing. It was so cool.
Were there any kind of major lessons you learned from that project that you feel like you carried with you onto then your live action shorts and eventually a feature?
Yeah, I think preparation with animation is very different than live action. Like, there's a lot of drawing and it takes a long time to see something. And when you see it, it's hard to go backwards, right? And so you approve storyboards and you approve an edit and then you animate it. And then if someone's like, oh, I'd rather the character goes from screen left to right, instead of right to left, that's starting over. So preparation in animation is very crucial, as is art direction, as is, your color scripts and all of that stuff. And I think that just sort of solidified all of the things that I knew, but really saw firsthand. And so like when we get into started doing live action stuff, I always really, really lean and rely on pre-production of projects to make sure everybody is aligned and everybody feels like they're bringing, their take to it, but we all know the direction that we need to go in. So there's no surprises, and in the independent world, you have a budget and you have a certain amount of time. And if those things don't align, there's major problems. And so you got to kind of prep to make the best of what you have. And you need to creative problem solve the things that you can't do. So yeah, I think that all sort of really was, like I said, solidified in doing an animated film.
Absolutely. I can definitely see how those learnings would benefit you in the indie world, because I always say any thinking you can do before you're on set is really critical. And a lot of that comes through the prep work, right? Looking at storyboards, doing the shot diagrams, so you understand exactly where everything's going to be, so that there's enough problem solving that's going to happen the day of. But if you can eliminate a few of those decisions and problem solving bits through preparation, it's going to save you a lot of time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, like, as you know, a director, and most department heads are, all you're doing is creative problem solving. Like, that's all it is. It's like you solve one problem and then you go on to solve the next, right? And when you prepare for it, at least you're not like, you're avoiding we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You know what I mean? Like, you've thought of all of the things that could happen and more. Then you have solutions already cooking and working. And a lot of times those solutions make your project better because of the things you can't do. But at least you're going in with an approach and an idea of where you need to go. And I think that that's, really important.
Definitely. And I think, when I first was introduced to you, Wither was the first project I saw of yours. And I was kind of immediately impressed by, the production value. And I think a lot of that comes from this preparation, the visual design skills, probably from illustration and animation. So it really paid off. And that was, very striking to me when I first saw your project. I did want to talk about Wither a little bit, since it was, the winner of the Project Greenlight's Real Fear competition. Did that end up being a little bit of a calling card for you? Or how did that impact your career at the end of the day?
I think for me personally, I don't want to speak on Tony's behalf, but I think for me personally, the coolest aspect of it was, again, collaborating with all of my friends and then getting the opportunity to meet you and all the folks that were a part of it. And that was just really, really cool. Like I said, it's like we were now meeting fellow nerds on a different level in a different arena who were doing different things and all had the same sort of ambitions that we had. And I really thought that was exciting. And it's funny because when we did that, we more than anything, we did it for fun. And I remember saying, like me and Tony were talking, I remember saying, I even said to my wife, I was like, I've never won anything in my life. You know what I mean? But this is an opportunity to just have a good time, and we'll just, we'll do it and see what happens. And I remember seeing all the films that everyone was making and just being blown away by how awesome it was, and the voices and the approaches and the styles and aesthetics. And I felt I didn't feel like we were in the ring with all of you guys, but it was very cool because it was inspiring. And yeah, we, the whole thing played out and we ended up having one, which was really cool and it was really exciting. And we got to continue to develop. And I learned a lot in the process, more than anything that I've ever learned up to that point. And it was truly how to develop a film, how to work with producers, how to work with studios, how to pivot and change and rethink things, like how to do contracts. All of that stuff is probably the most beneficial stuff that came out of it. And, obviously had lots of good conversations and met new people because of it. But I think all of that just gave me a really fast and furious, industry lesson of how to work in the industry professionally, not just a bunch of, random folks hanging out and just making, your own little $10,000 or $5,000 short films. It was a true production with legit people that have done tons of productions. So kind of opened my eyes a bit, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's no substitute for that in terms of gaining that experience. And it's one of the things you had mentioned, making the choice to whether or not to go study
Yeah.
further or just get paid, and for my undergrad, I had gone to film school, but one of the things that they don't teach you about are all those details, right? How do you negotiate and work with a studio? How do you stand up for yourself as a
Yep.
creative and manage those conversations, when to push back, when to accept the feedback and move on, how to
Yeah.
handle, is it just the myriad of different people that are involved, and to your point, all the contracts and the business. That's a lot, and it's overwhelming, I think, to a lot of filmmakers and artists, and probably other industries have similar stories, and music career as well. It's really hard to get that sort of education. So it's amazing that enabled you to kind of get that opportunity and to be able to further your career and maybe prep you for eventually working on a feature film, which I want to jump into.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool, and it goes right back to what I said earlier. Trial by fire. We were thrown in, and as an artist, we always think we know best and we know what's going on until you're into the next thing, and you're like, oh shit, I don't know anything. And then you learn a bunch, and you move on, and all the stuff that you learned the last time helps you, and then you learn new stuff, and like you're constantly failing, learning, moving on, failing, learning, moving on, and then hopefully that trajectory is going upwards. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a great experience for that, for sure.
Yes, and that's like a metaphor for all things in life, I think.
100%. Yeah. And then having, both of us having kids and, at that age, like it's hard to tell a child that like, yeah, you're going to fail and you have to fail because it's going to help you the next time. And I think back when my mom and my dad told me that stuff, and I was like, what the hell are these old people telling me? They don't know what's going on. And I look back, and there's so many times where I'm sitting in an experience going like, oh, damn, I remember a conversation with my mom and it all makes sense. And I feel like I have to call her and thank her, 30 years later or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking kind of childhood, let's chat about Marshmallow. So when did you first get involved in the screenplay by Andy Groscoviac, and what drew you to the story?
Yeah, so piggybacking on what I said earlier, I had done a film, and then we toured, we met some people, toured festival stuff, met some people, and then we made our second short film. And again, we were at festival and we were showing our short film in front of a feature film. And we met the producer Warner and the director Andy, and we just hit it off at the festival. And like, they were just super cool guys. And I remember being bummed that our movie was going to play in front of their film. And I remember them saying they were bummed that our movie was playing. And like, we both felt like we didn't belong with each other, but we hit it off, and like we just kept in touch. And over the years, we just talked, and I had done some stuff for them, like doing visual effects and helping them on other projects. And we always wanted to work together. And Warner, the producer, had called me up and was like, hey, I got a project that I think is cool, and it seems to fall in the Danny world. Do you want to like take a look? And I read it, and it was, the Marshmallow draft of the script. And I just loved it. It just, two reasons. One, it sort of captured my memory of being a kid and the difficulties of being a kid and the difficulties of growing up, which I think is a hard thing. And obviously we're midlife. I'm still going through, trying to find myself in the world. But the part that really then connected with me was the second portion of the film. Without saying much, I was able to relate as a parent, and it was very, very heavy and very deep. And so I really like the idea of the nostalgia, and then this sort of this very heavy adult theme, and like how those two things sort of captured and like worked together. And yeah, I really love the script. And I told them, I like sat with it for a bit, and I presented my take of what I would do, and some stuff that I would love to try to mix into what Andy had worked up, and they seemed to like it, and it moved pretty quick from that point, which was awesome.
How did it ultimately find financing and get greenlit?
So I read the script. I had given some notes. We worked through some stuff. And then, I feel like it was like a month or two later where Warner called me up and he's like, hey, we have the financing. Like, we're going to go do some location scouting. And I was just like, we live in this world, like every project is a miracle, right? Every movie that's made or project, whatever comes out is a miracle. And yep. I'm like, okay, sure. Like, cool. And then I would go, and he's like, we were on location scanning. He's like, you believe it's happening? I'm like, no, I'll believe it's happening when we're shooting. And then we were shooting. He's like, you believe it's happening? I'm like, no, I'll believe it's happening when we're editing. We're editing. You believe it's happening? I'm like, nope. When the movie's done, I'll believe. And that's just sort of the world that we live in, because, we've all been through so many crazy experiences. But yeah, it was privately financed. It got moved really quick. And once we found the location, we were casting, and Yeah, it's very weird. It just doesn't seem, it seemed fake, how I say it's easy because I wasn't doing all that stuff, but it seemed easy and quick from most of the other experiences that I had leading up to it.
Exactly. I think the typical indie film financing journey is usually described as a bit more of a roller coaster, and half the time the roller coaster goes off the tracks, and
Oh yeah,
you're like, whatever
100%.
happened to that?
Yeah, that was my experience up to that point. But it was cool that they wanted to make the movie and they wanted to let myself and Andy make the film that we felt comfortable with, and they let us do that, and the pieces just aligned, which was amazing. Yeah, amazing.
You mentioned this earlier, a little bit alluded to it, but I did want to know how being a parent yourself impacted your approach to the material. Obviously, it was one of the reasons you connected with it, which we won't get into spoilers or anything. But in other ways, did that impact how you approach the script and your kind of vision for the film?
Yeah, I think that I have three boys, three different ages. I have, one in elementary school, one in middle school, and one now in high school. And so it was very cool to see and hear the dialogue on the script, and then, obviously casting, because it was very authentic. And it's funny, every so often, like I'll see somebody say like, oh, kids don't talk like this. Like this movie sounds like adults talking. I'm like, I have three boys. I sit and listen in the other room. I hear them talking. Kids talk like this. So it was cool that I kind of felt like I had a good understanding of how kids operate, which is cool. I was able to tackle some of the themes in the film based on how a parent would operate, and for, half of the movie, because that's what I would do and how I would respond. And it definitely asks a lot of questions. But I think the biggest thing was when we cast the film too, I feel like finding, actors and the younger actors that were authentic, they all sort of related to the film for one reason or another. And that's kind of why they were cast. Not only were they amazing at their performances, but they all each had some connectivity to their specific role. And I felt that when we were on set, like we connected, like I connected with them and I feel they connected with me. And so we were all very comfortable and we all felt very close. It felt like a family, honestly. And outside of that, it was important that I had the trust of their parents, and their parents felt comfortable with me first and foremost. And we all established really great relationships early on. So it honestly felt like we were just bringing all of these families together and we were hanging out for like Thanksgiving and Christmas. It just felt very natural. And I think that allowed for it to work the way that it did. And again, that kind of starts at the top. It starts with the producers, it starts with the director and all the department heads. If everybody feels comfortable and there's a trust there, it makes everything way easier and everybody kind of wants to work together as a group,
No, absolutely. The whole cast of kids is great. I will have to say I have a favorite though. Max Mallis as Dirk is just such a delight. He brought so much levity to the film, and I was just like rooting for this kid the entire film.
Yeah, he's amazing. He cracks me up. It's funny because I'm not joking when I say that every kid in the film is literally, that's who they are outside of the film. So all those personalities, like I said, we cast them because their personality was what was written. And so they brought themselves into it. And like we would shoot a scene, we'd cut, and everyone is running around and jumping on each other and making inappropriate jokes and eating spicy potato chips and whatever. And then we start rolling, and then they were professionals, like jumped into it. They would run full 5-minute scenes. We cut, and then it was all back to, joke. And it's just funny how much that they translated on the screen from like who they actually were. So what you saw with that character in the film, that was Max 100%.
Well, that's amazing.
Probably a little, honestly, probably tamer than the real Max. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Love it. And that just sounds like a fantastic energy to have on set, but perhaps a little bit chaotic at times. And I think for a lot of people, especially indie productions, they say working with kids is really hard. You should avoid it if you're trying to keep a tight budget, because, there's a lot of challenges, of course. It can add to your schedule and kind of add to budget with having, the parents and set teachers and all of that. How did it influence your production? I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of benefits to it, and it sounds like it created a wonderful kind of joyous atmosphere, but were there some challenges as well?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because very similar to when I was talking earlier about the Watchmen project where, there's the big celebration and then the oh shit moment. Same thing here. Big celebration. Cool, we're making a movie. And then I was like, oh shit, it's all kids and it's all at night. And there's like, a lot of physical stuff. And I'm like, man, I've checked almost every box. If there were animals, we would have definitely had everything not to do. And I got really nervous for a minute. And then we started casting, and I'm looking at all these tapes, and every single person was just so good. And then, we started to pick our selects, which essentially I saw Q. I saw all of these people, and we knew right away, Kai, Max, Dill, and like everyone, we knew who we wanted, and we talked with them, and it clicked immediately. And that weight went away. I didn't have that fear again because they were just not only amazing actors, they were amazing people with amazing parents. And so when we all got to set, we felt like we were old friends, and they were in scenes with our adult cast. And they were pros. They were just so damn good. The toughest part, though, again, you mentioned it, was like they were still in school and we had limited hours. That was hard. That was a lot of scheduling. And like the movie is 80% at night. And where we were shooting in Kentucky, it got dark at 9:30 at night. And the kids had a wrap at 10 o'clock. It was crazy. We had to shoot lots of stuff and break scenes up and come back and shoot scenes when it was dark out. So that was the hardest part about it. But if it wasn't for how amazing all of the younger cast were, again, not only from a professional standpoint, but from a personality standpoint, we never would have got it done. I left that going. I was really, really, really lucky to have met and been able to work with all these people.
I love that story too. You're talking about how at first you had the different emotions of, yay, awesome, we're doing this. Oh shit, I'm working with a bunch of kids. Yeah. This is going to be a nightmare. But then once you start finding the right people, how there's a sense of maybe relief and then just excitement again, because you're like, oh, cool, I get to work with these awesome kids. I love that story. I wanted to dig into some other elements of the story. Again, not getting into spoilers, but Marshmallow feels like it's going to be, one type of horror movie when you start it, and then it becomes something very different in really the second half of the film. Did you find yourself leaning into certain reference material as inspiration to kind of lull the audience into believing that they're watching, a more typical camp slasher at the beginning?
Yeah, I think that was the genesis of the film, came from Andy saying, I want to make a camp slasher movie, but I want the kids to be the victims and not the counselors. And he said, how can we do that in a way that every studio or financier won't be afraid? Because once you put kids into the territory with violence, it's a tough balance. And so he ended up coming up with stuff that all stems from personal stuff. And it really kind of pulled all those pieces together, which was cool. However, the important thing was that we very strategically looked at every single stereotype in every, not only in the movies, but in reality. Like when you go to summer camp, and I drop my kids off at summer camp all the time, like every single cliche that you can think of, you have to play it up, because essentially it was key for us to, when the film takes a turn, all of those cliches and all of those stereotypes, like we try to explain them in a different way. And they lead to the story and they play into the story in a different way. And so it was fun to put all of the stuff in there, like the big sexy jock. Pearson's a big sexy guy. And to have like the serious like camp counselor, and to have like, the pretty flirty girlfriend, like the stoner dude. Like these are all things that you've seen in every movie. These are all things that you see at real camps. So we said, how can we take those things, use them, but use them in a way that they ultimately shift and change and turn. And that was really exciting. And we knew it was going to be a hard sell, because people were going to go in and they were going to either be excited to see a slasher, camp slasher movie, or they were going to be disappointed to not really see a camp slasher. But that was the fun of it. It's like, hey, let's do something different. We're not trying to I don't think we were trying to make a stamp or make a message with it. We just wanted to have fun with it and do something different that we thought would be cool. And, I talked earlier about this, but I leaned into my love of Spielberg films, and sci-fi. I love my Cronenberg and Lynch films as well. So like the ethereal stuff I wanted to bring in there, and some of the body horror stuff to some extent I wanted to bring in there. And I wanted to bring the films that I grew up loving, the Stephen King vibe. And it was fun to sort of figure out how do we like take all of these very different things and transition from one to the other in a kind of cohesive manner.
Yeah, and you just mentioning all of those inspirations or reference points really makes sense, because you can definitely see all of those somehow bottled up into this seemingly a camp slasher film that, becomes something else. So it gives it a unique feel. And I think the fun thing is that it can be both. You kind of get the best of both worlds, where you do get a little bit of the sort of comfort food of a slasher coming in through those archetypal characters that you're like, I know what I'm watching. This is fun. I'm enjoying this because it's familiar. But then you also get the unexpected twists and turns that allow you to have something different, that it's not your typical slasher. So I personally loved that journey.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I think that's always the fun thing. Like you want to, like for me anyway, like I love to watch a movie and I like stuff that I feel, you said it, comfortable. Like I feel there's a comfort there, right? And you feel invited into a world, and then it's exciting to get different stuff than what you're expecting. So you sort of like, you ease in, right? You have to ease into a movie and sort of accept the rules of the world early on, and then just go for the ride. And that's the kind of movies that I like to watch. And that's what we wanted to do with this one. Like give people something that they know so that they fall into it. And then just let's take them on a ride that gives them lots of different stuff to talk about and think about and either like or not like. But that's the whole point of making art,
Definitely. I'm curious, do you consider Marshmallow to be gateway horror? I know it's not necessarily for kids, but, given that it's a largely a child cast, and I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, when I read the script, I'm like, oh, this would have been a book or something that I would have loved to see when I was a kid. Honestly, the reason that when it was released, they didn't want to do like a rating thing, because they wanted to kind of keep it open where kids can watch it on some level, and then also adults can relate to it on a different way. And it's been really exciting for me to hear people say like, oh man, I watched the film and I really could relate to this aspect because that happened to me. And then I hear somebody else say, oh, it was really fun because I loved going on a journey with these kids. And then somebody else will say like, oh, like as a parent, this was really, really hard for me because of this. So it's cool that it kind of like, and then kids, like my kids watched it and my kids had fun with it because they got to see a bunch of badass little kids like just being heroes and like banding together and like beating up assholes along the way. So I like that it's kind of open-ended in terms of who can access the film and who can sort of connect with it, And I think that's always the fun movies, when there's like a lot of different people that connect in one way or another, good or bad.
Yeah. And that's perhaps part of why it did actually get a theatrical release, which in the year 2025 is a rare feat to have an indie film actually hit theaters.
Blew my mind.
Yeah. That's amazing. Did you actually have a chance to go to any of the screenings yourself?
I did actually. It's funny because we didn't get to do a true festival run, because I had got a call and they're like, hey, the film is going to do a theatrical run. So we kind of, right out of the gate when we were finishing the film, already knew that it was just going to theaters. And so that was really cool, and also sad because like I said, I loved going to festivals and meeting people and all of that stuff. But I was really excited because very rarely do we get to see things on a screen these days, especially independent films, And so, I got to go see the film. I went with friends. I took my kids. That was the first time that they actually saw the whole thing. They had seen bits and pieces as I was working on it, so they knew everything. They also did voices in the movie, but they got to see it on the big screen. And it was like, I'm sitting with my wife and some friends and my kids in the theater with a bunch of randos, a bunch of random people are there that bought tickets to see a movie that we made, which was weird and blew my mind. And I remember my middle son, after it was over, is like, hey, Dad, I really liked your movie. And at that point, I've said this a few times, but at that point, I felt like I had succeeded and I could close the book, and I didn't give a shit about anything else that happened. My son, leaning over and telling me that he liked the movie I feel like it was a victory for me. And everything else has been fun, but that was like the moment where I felt like I really succeeded. Brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah, yeah. Same over here. I mean, what
Yeah.
a wonderful thing to be able to experience with your family and have your kids be proud of you is a wonderful feeling. Just as much as we love being proud of our kids and maybe they seek our approval in some ways, I think sometimes as parents, we want the same thing, right? We want our kids
Yeah.
to be proud of us. We want them to look up to us.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah, so cool. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and like the pandemic, and we mentioned this earlier, pandemic happened, changed the world, changed everybody's lives for good, for bad. It was a thing. For me though, like it was interesting because it was the first time that I was working at home on this kind of thing, right? Animation and movies and commercials and films and all that stuff. And it was the first time that my kids and even my wife were like, had full access to what I do on a day-to-day basis. You know, like I used to leave in the morning and go, okay, I'm going to work. Going to work on a commercial, and I'd come home at night and be like, cool, we finished that commercial, and that was it. And then they would see it maybe on television or on the internet, and they're like, oh, cool. But this was like the first time that I was like sitting at my desk, like drawing storyboards or animating or on calls, giving feedback or getting feedback or talking to clients, and they were seeing it all firsthand. And so they saw it being built, right? They saw something being built from start to finish. And I think it opened the door of possibilities for them in terms of things that they could do, whether it's making movies or animating or becoming a musician or whatever. And it was exciting because they just sort of had like the firsthand experience to it. And I think that when we were making Marshmallow, they got to see a lot of that too. You know, they would come down and watch me edit or watch me look at the edit and watch me like write notes or do some VFX stuff or listen to music. And I think that they felt invested in the process as well. And it's hard to tell, like, you know, we've heard this growing up. You have teachers and people telling you could do whatever you want. You could be whatever you want. And that's such a loose thing because you understand it, but you can't see it, right? And I think it was cool for me because I felt that I saw like a twinkle in their eyes of saying like, oh shit, I could really do whatever I want in life. Because my dad is sitting here listening to shitty music, watching, you know, crazy movies and animating stuff. Like if he can do it, then I can do it. And I really love that it opened I think possibilities for them in some level.
I can completely see that, seeing that sort of modeled, because I think for a lot of people growing up, especially are interested in the arts, they don't really have maybe people in their life that they see with actual careers, you know, that are, you know, maybe they think of celebrities and that's about it.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to have that modeled and it makes it feel more tangible. It's a perfect segue actually into the last question of the formal portion of the interview, which is, do you have any advice for other filmmakers who might just be starting out their career?
Yeah, I tell this to everybody, and I've said it a lot. I feel the most important thing is surrounding yourself with people that are good, that are positive, that inspire you, that you get along with, that you trust, and that have the same work aesthetic as you do and have the same dreams that you do, because you will do a lot more and achieve a lot more if you're around people that are in it for the same reasons that you are. You know, Tony, who you met, is a writer that I worked with for many years. He was really one of the first people outside of my tight friend group that came along and I would say, oh, I want to make this. And he's like, oh, cool. And then the next day he would come back with something. And I was like, shit, this dude like went home and wrote a script and came back and was ready to like make it. And it just like changed the way I thought about stuff. And it made me fully realize that, yep, it's the people that you surround yourself with that shape your life for good or bad, you know, depending on who you're around. Like, and you have to put in as much as you want to get out of it. And I don't know. I work on movies of friends that are directing projects and I'm doing something different and they're working on my films that I'm directing. And it's like, you just jump into it and you just build together. And more importantly, no matter what you make, if you didn't have fun and everybody didn't leave the process having had a good time, it's a failure. You know, you want to make sure that everybody gets to put their thumbprint on something and everyone is proud of what they did and you all had a good time. And I always say, it's not a film by blank, right? Like it's a film by and then show the credits. Like as a director, you're steering the ship, sure, and you're helping like solve problems and it's like your vision, but it's your vision that's put together by a lot of other really amazing visions and amazing amazing ideas. And you can't lose sight of that as a director or as a filmmaker. It takes a lot of people to put stuff together and find those people, hold them close, and you can do anything at that point.
Wise words.
Every so often I'll have a few wise words. Most of the time I don't, but there you go.
Well, there's been plenty so far, and they're all recorded now. So, haha.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the rapid fire 15, which often is not very rapid, I'll be honest. So no pressure. Don't feel like you need to have rapid responses, but it's just 15 fun questions to get to know you a little bit better. Don't worry, it's not a cool test.
I'm not cool, so it's all good. Yeah.
All right, so you got nothing to prove.
Nothing to prove, yeah.
All right, let's kick it off with question 1. What movie do you think you have seen the most in your life?
Oh, man. The Back to the Future trilogy. I've watched that. I could say every single line in every one of those movies. I have like 10 that I could list, but Back to the Future trilogy, I think, is number one.
Solid answer.
Yeah.
Next up, is there a movie or a show or a song that always makes you cry?
It makes me cry. E.T. makes me cry all the time, every time I watch it. And especially now that I have kids, I cry even more. In fact, I was watching it not too long ago, and my wife from across the house yelled, "Are you in there crying by yourself watching E.T.?" And that made me laugh through my tears when I was watching that movie. And seeing with my kids, again, has made it another, there's another emotion added to it. So, yeah.
Oh, I can relate. I think ever since I've been a parent, I feel like I cry so much more easily at everything.
Isn't it funny how that happens? Like you watch a movie like when you're like a teen or growing up when you don't have kids and you're like, yeah, I understand this like child trauma that they put in there for a story's sake. But then you watch it when you have kids and it like just really messes you up on a different level.
Yeah, I think it's an empathy thing too, right? It's you have to develop a lot of deep empathy to be a parent. Not to say parents are so much more empathetic than everyone else in the world, that you have to be a parent to be empathetic. But I think you have to flex those muscles a lot.
Yeah.
And then obviously being able to relate in a different way to what's happening on screen
100%.
Definitely plays a role.
Yeah.
Question number 3. What's the first film that really scared you or gave you nightmares?
It was Mad Max. The first Mad Max, which was on the tape of Mad Max, Friday the 13th, Part 2, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If it was a 1, 2, 3, that would be the order of it. Mad Max did it for me because it was the first like truly like independent indie movie that I watched. And the scene where they're in their cars revving it up to, strike down the mom and the baby. I honestly, I still think about that shot a lot. And it's funny, like my son and I, he loves VHS tapes and we go shopping and buy a bunch of VHS tapes. And we got Mad Max and we were watching the trailer the other night before we put it on. And every time I see it, it sparks something inside me. And that did something to me. And again, as an adult now with kids, like it hits it on a different level. And it's not like a, true horror movie, but that did it for me when I was a kid. Well,
usually when we ask this question to people, oftentimes it's not a horror film that comes up, right? It might just be a non-horror movie that had something really scary in it, that unintentionally scared kids. But I think that's an interesting example because it's kind of the needless cruelty of it that is very upsetting in a distinctive way.
And you understand it too, as like every good movie you enjoy and you watch multiple times, and the older that you get and the more life experience you get, you start understanding things on a different level. And that's one of those that every time I watch it, I see something different or I experience it in a different way or I understand something in a different way, that's the great thing about art.
Definitely. What is your favorite animated film?
Favorite animated film? Oh man, that's a loaded question. I love animated films. I really love WALL-E, more recently WALL-E, and I really love The Wild Robot. Again, as a parent, I maybe connect with those because of being a parent. And Flow recently, I think, was a beautiful one. And my family and I saw that movie in the theater multiple times. And I just remember watching that film with my youngest son, and he loved it. And I remember coming home and we put on the soundtrack and we listened to the soundtrack every night, like when I was putting him to bed. And I think I have like a personal connection with it.
Oh, all 3 great films. Yeah. The Wild Robot. I cried.
I cried every time.
Several times.
Yeah.
It's not even the sad parts. Sometimes it's like the happy parent parts that got to me.
It's beautiful.
Question number 5. What is your favorite horror movie franchise and why?
Favorite horror movie franchise? Oh
It's
man.
hard when you add the franchise part, right? Because most people
Yeah,
have an answer for the movie, but then they're like, oh, but the franchise as a whole, I don't know.
it's tough because I feel every franchise is like good, and then there's like ups and downs, and like that's just the nature of what it is. I feel like I'm gonna like regret saying something. Can I say like the Universal monster films like as a franchise? Does that
Yeah,
count?
yeah.
I'd say
Why
that.
not?
Yeah, I think again, those were great stuff, and I have such good memories of watching and experiencing that stuff at a younger age, with my grandparents actually. And I think that it was just that they made so many really cool things and did so much different stuff. And I like to put those on and revisit those quite often. And I feel like they're just like comfort food on some level. And there's a consistency there across the different, from Frankenstein to, Creature. Like it's different, but they all work together really well, I feel.
Yeah, it is almost a shared universe in a way, and
Yeah.
sometimes it is, right? Because they had crossovers with a few of
Yep.
them.
Yeah.
So, but it's just a wonderful era of filmmaking, and for horror in particular, and
Yeah.
so many interesting themes that you could dive into, and the creativity around the design of all the creatures is outstanding.
Yeah, I think that what's really exciting about that, and again, as you get older, you see and understand it a lot more. But to have such a very specific point of view on a lot of very specific political things and like stuff that the world was dealing with at the time, and wrapping it up into a quote unquote monster movie, right, or a horror film. It was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and I don't think it paved the genre, and a lot of wonderful things came from it that we owe a lot to.
Agreed. All right, question 6. What slasher villain do you think would come out on top if we were to pit them all against each other?
Oh man, slasher villain. I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for it. I think Freddy Krueger, because of being able to go in and out of sort of out, but like having that sort of connectivity to your inner fears and being able to control and manipulate people through their mind and through their dreams. I think that that's a very powerful thing. And I feel that lots of these different franchises like started to realize, when something is not human, you have more flexibility with it. So yeah, I would say the Freddy would probably take the top for me.
I think that's a pretty common answer just based off of his capabilities.
Yeah, I just think that it's cool to watch these big villains that are going through that get, blown up or cut into pieces, and then they come back for one reason or another, but they're living in the real world with real people doing real things and suffering real consequences. Like that's great and it's really fun. But the idea that what Wes had did with that film and was breaking the boundaries between dreams and personal fears and reality, I think was a really smart and different thing that opened a lot of doors for future filmmakers.
Okay, now we're going to step outside of film for the next few questions. Question 7, what is your favorite comic book? If it's not The Watchmen, I don't know. You did mention you loved that as a young child.
Yeah, Watchmen, I think, is up there for sure. And then as I started branching into other things in like high school and in college, I really got into I love Black Hole. I think that's a phenomenal graphic novel. So I would put those two at the top for sure.
Nice. Question 8, what is your go-to Chicago comfort food?
Oh, man. Pequod's Pizza. It's, again, a very controversial thing. It's not a deep dish pizza. It's like a pan pizza, but it's just really damn good. Yeah, it's good. And anytime we meet up or people come into town or talking to a friend, hey, let's get together. It's let's go to Pequod's and eat a whole lot of really thick pizza.
I feel like any answer here probably would be controversial because it feels like Chicagoans love to get they have a fierce loyalty around not even certain food types, but certain brands or restaurants that around that food.
Oh, 100%. And especially pizza. Pizza obviously is a very that's a tough thing in general, no matter where you are. Everyone's got a very specific of where the best pizza is. But it's funny because I always see these lists 10 best places in Chicago, and everybody's takes a shit on every one of them, even though they're amazing. Or where's this place? So I love it. Pequod's is great. It's good.
I have favorites with pizza, but you know what? I will take any pizza at the end of the day. I love it in all forms.
100%. That's what I always say. Every pizza is good pizza. That's just, if I could eat pizza every day, I would.
Yeah. It's hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
All right, question 9. Do you have a favorite concert you've attended or a really memorable concert experience?
Oh, that is a loaded question. I love music. I've loved music since I was little. I love going to concerts. I still love going to concerts. I don't even know. I
There's so
think
many good ones that it's hard to pick. It's like
it's
picking a favorite child.
it is. It's all like flashing through my head. I think I was really young, and I think like one of the first like punk concerts I went to, I saw Bad Religion play, and that sort of changed things for me and really got me excited about like punk music. And I was a little kid. Like that was like parents drive you and drop you off type deal. So I think that sort of changed my trajectory in music and getting into it and seeing, all these like punk rockers and people moshing and jumping off of the stage and listening to fast music. And I think that was really cool. And then I also loved when I got to take my kids to see Kiss, because that was like one of the first bands I remember hearing when I was really little. So it was fun to be at a big stadium with my two boys listening to Kiss play. So yeah, I think those two probably.
Oh, those are great examples.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. Kind
I
of
think
full circle moment for it.
Yeah.
One when you're young and one as an adult taking your own kids.
I think everything, it's like movies, like everything, you have an answer based on where you were in your life or what it did to your life. And sometimes it's more than the band or the movie or the artist. It's more about the experience that you were in at that time. And I think that those are both more about the experience than anything else.
Oh, 100%. When people ask about my favorite movie, I often say, well, this is my favorite, not because I think it's the best film of all time, but it's my favorite because it had a certain impact on me at that time in my life and kind of changed the trajectory of things for me. And that's why it's my favorite. And nothing else will be my favorite ever again, probably.
Yeah.
Because of that. You never say never, I guess.
No.
So.
Yeah, I always say too, I always tell people, I go, movies, like, especially when you make them, they really become a documentary of your life, because you look back and you watch it and you'll remember not only everything that went into making the movie, but everything that was going on in your life. And it's a point recorded in time that is now always going to be there, that will always mark a spot on your timeline. And it just becomes more personal because you made it. So yeah, we all have those. And I think that influences a lot.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. All right, we have 2 more music questions. Music questions seem to be almost harder for people that love music.
Yeah.
It's like, like I said, asking you to pick favorite children. So this one, question number 10, what is your go-to karaoke song? And if you don't do karaoke, what would you do if you had to?
So I don't do karaoke. I've done karaoke one time. I am a horrendous singer. So the one time I did do it, I did Danzig's Mother. And that's probably the song that I would do again if I had to do karaoke. But yeah, it was Mother by Danzig.
That's a great one. I've seen that one gets the crowd going too. So if you get people into it, it helps kind of take the pressure off you.
That was it, honestly. Because everybody can sing to it. You know what I mean? And it was like, you don't need a massive range. Not saying that Danzig doesn't have a massive range, but like you don't need a massive range for that. So and it gets everyone amped up and everyone sings along, and then your voice could kind of get buried beneath the the group of people.
All right, this one's a hard one. What would be your entrance or walkout music? Like if you were coming out like as a wrestler or for a TED Talk or something, whatever you imagine it to be, what would be your walkout music?
Oh, man, walkout music. Part of me, I automatically started thinking about actual like bands, but then sort of shifted over to like Tangerine Dream and Goblin and something like that. And I feel that I would probably lean more into that territory, rather than playing like some big amped up Rock You Like a Hurricane or something like that.
I like that. It's moody. It's like sets a different tone.
Yeah, I think so. It's like you're creating a soundtrack, like your own soundtrack, you know what I mean? Or your own score. Yeah, so I think I'd probably like maybe something from Sorcerer, I think something like that would be cool. It's just more of a ethereal kind of synthy, moody type thing. I think that would be that'd be fun.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
All right, we're back into movies for the next few. What is one movie you wish you could go back in time and see in theaters for the first time with a live audience?
Oh, it's funny that you asked that because just recently, we got to see Jaws in theaters again and we got to see Back to the Future in theaters again. And that was really, really amazing, both of which I saw with my kids. And I left both of those movies, having seen them all hundreds of times, feeling like I experienced them again because they were on the big screen and I got to like relive them in a different way. And that was really cool. I would love to watch Alien or Star Wars with an audience when it first came out, or like, yeah, I didn't get to see those in theaters. We all get to see all this really great, like old videos and interviews of people talking about it. And I would have loved to see how that was, the reaction of like, yeah, just seeing something different and new and like, and people's reactions to those are always just blow my mind. And I just wish I could experience that.
Yeah, I think of the chest burster, the first time you see the chest burster in Alien being a moment that would have just been shocking as an audience member, and I would have loved to be screaming alongside that audience.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so different than what it is now with people that see movies nowadays and how people experience movies. And I feel that it was just a very different thing back in the day. And I really wish that I could, I got to experience a decent amount of that being an old man. So like I got some of that, but I wish I could go to some of the ones that were like really changing, changing things before like I could go to the theater.
Yeah, the audience now is much more jaded, I think, and has seen so much that it's harder to surprise people now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And you don't get the kind of reactions and the sort of, we were talking earlier, like you find things and things live and grow for you based on you finding them and the reaction of people around you. And I think everybody already knows what they want to feel and see and say before they experience a film or see a band or whatever. And that kind of pushes the experience aside. It doesn't make it as much as an experience,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question 13. If you could program a double feature of any two films in the world so people could get to know you, like, here's your two wolves, or just a pair of films that you think would just do really well as a double feature, however you want to frame it, like, what would be your two films?
It's going to sound like a cheesy answer because I just said it, but I think I'd put Jaws and Alien together. I think I love both of those movies so much. And I think that it'd be a really fun experience to see both of those movies.
Yeah, ultimate predator sort of double feature.
And they're so different but so similar. It all relies on you being in the world, you know what I mean? And so you're living in this vacation aesthetic for Jaws, and then you're like in this like dread-filled atmosphere for Alien, and very different, but it's more of an experience, you know what I mean? And it's again more of what you don't see that creates it for you. And I really like that. I think both of those do a great job at that. So I think that'd be fun. I would go watch those movies back to back.
I'll buy a ticket too.
Yeah.
All right. We're in the midst of holiday season. Do you have a go-to Thanksgiving and Christmas watch?
Thanksgiving, Planes, Trains. Love it. It's great. Yep. Hilarious.
Great message.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just a fun one. Holiday movies. I feel like I answer and then I'll think of something later and say, I should have said this, but we love Home Alone. I remember seeing Home Alone when I was a kid in theater and I was crying. I was laughing so hard, and my kids love it now. And so we always will put Home Alone on multiple times throughout the season. So yeah, I think those would be my two.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, Home Alone has this amazing staying power, and I hope it continues to for future generations. I know now we might be biased because we grew up with it and are now showing it to our kids, but hopefully it sticks. At Halloween this year, some kids came up dressed as the Wet Bandits. They had awesome costumes. I had like the feathers stuck to like Marv's.
So good.
It was so good. And you instantly knew who they were, but they were teenagers. And I just thought that was great.
Yeah. My kid, my youngest loves Home Alone. Like they love it. And they like Home Alone and Home Alone 2. Like they watch them both like regularly, which is awesome. And it's funny to go up into my, kid's room and watch him watching Home Alone on VHS on his little CRT TV. So it's awesome.
That's so wonderful. That's very like cozy nostalgia vibes all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we went to, we were shopping for VHS and we found Home Alone and we're like, score. Then we got Home Alone 2 and he's like, score. So yeah, it's a good one. And I remember like I saw that movie and I loved it. I was dying when I watched it. I was a little kid and I remember getting the book the Home Alone book, and I got in my parents' bed and I read that Home Alone book in one sitting. And it, I probably find it now and it's probably like 75 pages, but I felt like, man, I blasted through a full book in like a couple of hours, like all in one reading. Like, that's how much I loved the movie. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Question 15. That means it's the last question of the rapid fire 15. Do you have a dream project? Like, is there an original idea or something based on IP or maybe a historical figure whose story you'd like to bring to life? Do you have that white whale for film?
I do have a handful that are always bouncing in and out, but I guess I would love more than anything to do something like either The Road Warrior, which obviously George Miller has done a bunch of amazing films living in that world, but like that would be a dream, and or doing something in the Blade Runner world. I think both of those movies are phenomenal. I love everything about them. And I don't know what that is specifically. Not saying I want to make, a new Blade Runner movie, but I would want to do something that captures a vision that no one had seen before and tells a story about a world that no one has seen before. And both of those do that. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about The Road Warrior, maybe my son the other day, we're talking about The Road Warrior. I'm like, they set it up by showing a really fast little montage of the world ended. And now you have people living in this new, era of the world trying to survive on finding gasoline and selling gasoline to get different stuff. And it's like, you're in a different part of something that's familiar, and Blade Runner does the same thing. It's like it's a different world that we didn't know or understand, and I think it'd be fun to explore something like that.
Yeah, those universes and worlds that are created are so deep that you could take it in so many different directions, whether it's like a spin-off thing or a reimagining of the original. But those are great ones.
Yeah, really fun. And it's tough, though, especially now, because we've seen so much of everything, and we're even seeing the old stuff coming back. And I feel like it takes a lot of work to create something that hasn't been experienced or seen before, But it's
Awesome.
cool. I mean, yeah, there's a ton of awesome directors out there that are, especially in our genre, that are creating and making new stuff that is different than we've seen in the last 40, 50 years, which is great. So there's opportunities for sure.
There's always opportunity. And
Yeah.
to the conversation earlier, sometimes you just have to make your own opportunity.
That's it.
Forge your path forward.
Yep.
Well, you did it. You went through the rapid fire 15. I think you're pretty cool from it, but
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll take that. I'll wear that on the sleeve for sure.
right. As we're wrapping up here, is there anything else you want to tease about what's next? Anything that we should keep our eye out for? Any projects that you can talk about?
Yeah, we have a couple of really fun projects that we are in multiple different stages of development and pre-production. Excited to be a couple of those to be working with the same team on MASHMALLOW. And then also there has been talks and activity on possibility of a second MASHMALLOW. So that is something that would be a dream come true if we could go forward with that. So that's my world right now.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, there's definitely a lot that could be explored, and when people watch MASHMALLOW, they'll know what I'm talking about. That's great. Is there anywhere you want to direct folks to find you, social media, website, or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm a terrible social media person, but I am on Instagram, Daniel.DelPurgatorio. And then I have a website, DelPurgatorio.com. And that has like a bunch of my short films and stuff that I work on. And I think that's probably the best places to check it out if you're interested.
Awesome. And of course, you can find MASHMALLOW on the major streaming platforms like YouTube, Amazon, and Apple TV. So check it out, support indie horror, get a jump start, but hopefully we'll have MASHMALLOW 2 on the horizon.
You're a better salesperson than me. I'm like, I answered the question and you started saying that about MASHMALLOW. I'm like, all my producers are like elsewhere rolling their eyes going like, oh, this guy is not pimping our movie. Yes, you could find MASHMALLOW. It's all on VOD right now everywhere. And we have a really exciting streaming announcement for early next year and a physical media announcement coming soon as well. So yeah, you'll be able to see it in lots of different forms.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting about your career, sharing a lot of great advice, and getting into the details on MASHMALLOW. It was really good to catch up with you. And I think as filmmakers, it's really helpful to hear other people's experiences, helps us feel like we're not alone. And I think it helps others who are just starting out and maybe kind of looking to find their footing. So thank you for being open and sharing with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And it's always exciting to talk. Everyone has got a different experience and a different approach and different things going on in life. And, we could all sort of make our own way by just leading the path. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about mine.
All right. Take care, Danny.
See ya.